When a player wins, the so-called death sequence begins.
That you're marketing gratuitous violence with real no end in sight.
The game narrator instructs the player to finish him. I quote, finish his opponent.
Hello, it is I, Christopher Lambert. No, it's just me. Welcome to Chaos Ensues, grab some grippy socks and get comfortable. Did I say grippy socks? I meant snacks. Mortal Kombat is just a bunch of nonsense slapped together, and somehow it stays pretty coherent despite that. Plus a lot of gore, can't forget that. Why is this Dragon Man fighting a ninja, a thunder god, robots, a mall cop, and some soldiers?
Because it's fucking cool.
It doesn't really have to make sense, it just has to evoke a feeling of excitement. For Mortal Kombat co-creator John Tobias, that's what MK was, just a mashup of all the things he liked.
For me, it was the opportunity to take all this inspiration from all the kung fu films that I grew up watching and kind of throwing it into a game.
People don't realize that there's a lot of work done in the actual characters and their costume. I've never asked John for a character that looks like something. He shows me something that says, what do you think of that? And I go, that's great.
See, the inspiration, I think, for a lot of the characters come from all over the place. I mean, they come from movies I've seen when I was a kid. They come from books I've read. I mean, everybody gets inspiration from somewhere.
Growing up in the city, graffiti art was a big thing that was happening at the time, especially in the early 80s. A lot of the time, we would do stuff, you know, on the sneak. And then I think we discovered after a while, if you just knock on a door and ask, a lot of the times they'll let you paint a mural on the side of their business or whatever it was. And so we did a lot of murals in the mid-late 80s. But I was a huge comic book reader, both DC and Marvel, and found a lot of inspiration from the comic book artists who were popular at the time.
Well, let's see, a character would probably first start with me sitting down staring at a blank wall for a little while, and then after a while, something will hit me and I'll just start sketching around different ideas.
And so, of course, it was my dream to illustrate comic books, and eventually actually got a job doing it, and used that money to kind of pay my way through school. Most of the work I did was for a comic book called The Real Ghostbusters, based on the cartoon that was out at the time.
Eventually, Tobias ended up as an artist at Midway Games. Midway is where he met MK co-creator Ed Boon, who was working as a programmer on different games before Tobias showed up. Inspired by Street Fighter II, Boon and Tobias wanted to make their own fighting game, bringing together others who would be part of MK.
My name's Dan Ford, and I do sounds and music. And tell people.
John Vogel, backgrounds and special effects.
My name is Ed Boon. I'm co-designer and programmer.
John Tobias, and co-designer and lead artist.
Even now, Tobias doesn't get enough credit for the world building he did for MK. This isn't to put down Ed Boon at all. As the only programmer on the original Mortal Kombat, Boon is the reason the MK games actually gamed. However, Tobias needs to be elevated as well.
Noob Saibot.
As you can see, it says here, closed door means please do not disturb. But, see, there's a little crack here. So I'm assuming that the door's not closed. So we're going to go in, and this is Ed Boon's office, so here we go. Oh, they seem to be in the middle of a deep thought here, putting together a video. And they're not too amused, so we'll just leave.
Whatever can possibly happen in the game, you know, I have to program the game to be able to do that. As you play the game, when you first start, the computer's very dumb. It'll just stand there, it'll let you beat it up. And then as you fight the second guy, it'll get a little smarter, and then the third guy a little smarter. And it has to be progressive. It has to be something that's, you know, a smooth increase in the difficulty, because if you play the game the first time and the computer kills you, you're not going to want to play it again.
Tobias also called in martial artists Ho Sung Pak, Richard DeVizio, Daniel and Carlos Pacina to come up with some martial arts moves and play the characters. Dancer Elizabeth Malecki was hired to play Sonya Blade. The cast was supposed to be all male at first, so Sonya was added in last minute.
But word on the streets, Sonya will really put it on ya.
Here we go. This beat up, tattered looking studio is where we've shot all of the digitizing for the Mortal Kombat game.
what happens is we take each character individually and we videotape them. And we take the videotape, cut out the character, feed it into a computer. And that way, when you play Mortal Kombat, you really are the character.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most secret code I could ever give anybody, and it's the code to our motion capture studio, so we're going to have to change it after this. It's 2-4 at the same time, then it's 3. Look at that. So next time you guys break into Midway, you know how to get in our motion capture studio. You know, when you work in computers, everything's got to be clean and pristine. You can't be slobs about anything. When you see guys jump flipping and doing somersaults in Mortal Kombat, they do it off this trampoline. And the reason why we use it is because, you know, a lot of times you got a motion capture guys jumping, so we get them jumping on his trampolines. And we actually have trouble guys, you know, banging their head on the ceiling. That light's out there because somebody whacked it real good. Somebody's in there. Here we go. Door was open. Here's our costume room. This is where, whenever we costume anybody, we kind of bring them over here. We've got, here you see Scorpion's costume. Here we've got Shinnok's costume. And what else do we have here? Here's Raiden's. Here, this is cool. Scorpion's mask.
Here's the camera that takes in the signal. We run signals into our beta camera quarter, and we also run a signal here into our PC, and then on our PC here, we have one of our boards connected to that, and also this is where we do the actual grabbing of frames to be digitized. You can kind of see our talent out there, and I'll really quickly grab some images of them. That's good, Tony. We're able to click through frame by frame, delete the frames we don't want, keep the frames that we do like.
The result is an iconic fighting game featuring a sorcerer wanting to steal some souls with Earth's best martial artists protecting their home. Also a lot of fatalities. So many fatalities.
And remember, Mortal Kombat is totally true to life. Or is that death? Ha!
In 1992, Tobias wrote and drew a Mortal Kombat comic for the release of the first game. He was able to expand the lore from his notes and sketches and those in-game text boxes a lot of people did not read. Midway put the comic out, so it's canon. It serves as a prequel to the Sorcerer Shang Tsung's tournament. Tobias expands on the history of the original characters and how they got involved in the tournament.
I was a big Joseph Campbell fan. I had read his books, and I was aware of the hero's journey and the character archetypes that he had sort of outlined.
Most of the characters' names came from John Tobias. A couple of the characters he didn't have a name written down for them. He had Ninja 1 and Ninja 2. I was a little bit more of like a simple superhero mindset, so I started calling them Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Those simple names were kind of like my influence, but the authentic, cool names, Goro, Shang Tsung, Kano, Raiden, you know, that was John's deal.
In July 1994, a company named Malibu got the chance to make comics based in the MK world, starting with a 6-issue series named Blood and Thunder. Most of the Malibu comics are written by Charles Marshall. The art for this series was done by Patrick Rollo and Kiki Chen-Simone. Issue 1 is pretty much a retelling of the first Tobias comic. The rest of these Malibu stories do their own thing, showing their own version of Shang Tsung's tournament. They don't fit in the continuity of the games, however they still have some rad moments going from different series to one-shots. Before the MK comics, Malibu put out some Street Fighter comics, but those were not as successful as the MK ones. MK had multiple titles while Street Fighter only ran for 3 issues. While Malibu originally started as a publisher for black and white independent comics, it eventually got licenses to make comics of different properties. When Image Comics first launched, Malibu published and distributed their titles, which was a major leap for creative ownership. In November 1994, Marvel Comics ended up buying the competition and acquiring Malibu. My run-in with MK did not start with the OG arcade version. No, I had the Game Boy version, which was very different from the arcade or home systems. While I played this game a lot, I don't think I would have liked it if I played the OG first. It was more appealing because I had no frame of reference. There were a few downsides, no blood, you could barely see the characters, each attack took a year to hit, fatalities were impossible but you'd pull off the occasional special move, there's also no announcer voice. It's not the version of the game that had to go in front of a Senate committee for being too violent.
Blood splatters from the contestants' heads. When a player wins, the so-called death sequence begins. The game narrator instructs the player to finish, and I quote, finish his opponent. The player may then choose a method of murder, ranging from ripping a heart out to pulling off the head of the opponent with spinal cord attached. The second version, made by Nintendo, leaves out the blood and decapitation, but as you will see, it is still a violent game.
Tonight is the creator of the Mortal Kombat videos, Ed Boon, who is sitting right next to me, and John Tobias. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you. You know, as these things evolve, parents are getting a bit concerned because they get more and more graphic, and they are accusing you, or at least other critics as well, that you're marketing gratuitous violence with real no end in sight. I mean, the games do nothing except sit there and you watch people die. Are you?
Absolutely not. I mean, what we provide is a form of entertainment in the form of a video game. The violent aspect of the video game is, you know, is a minor aspect in the overall scheme of the game itself. The players, I think, are aware of that. We're aware of that. Maybe somebody looking on the outside, unfamiliar with the game itself.
What do kids learn, Mr. Boone, out of this? What do they learn?
There's no learning value. It's just like any other form of entertainment. There's just you go there to have fun, and you go there to play the game. Most of the people who critics of the game haven't even played the game, and they don't realize that exactly what points of the game there's violent aspects of it.
We see kids looking at violent, increasingly violent movies. They see a lot of violence in the news. They see a lot of violence on TV. Why do they need more of it? I mean, are you concerned at all that they're being overexposed to violence, with perhaps the idea or the residual effect being that they become desensitized to watching people die because all they have to do is push a button and it starts again?
There's a lot of parallels, exactly like you said, with movies, and that's why a couple of years ago there was a rating system that our industry kind of came up with, similar to the rating systems that you have in movies, and that provides parents and other players, for instance, the knowledge they need as to the content of the game.
Blood and Thunder covers the tournament from the first game and ties it to MK2. The series itself does a good job showing why the tournament is important. Even though it takes liberties with the Tobias continuity, it fleshes out the relationships between the characters. There are some new characters created just for this series. These Shaolin monks named Sing and Sang, not great names. They're tied to Liu Kang's past as a monk. When they merge their powers, they become
Siang?
They're very 90s superhero comics. They fuse together and even have a green mohawk. There's a water-bending Lin Kuei named Hydro who makes his debut in these stories. By the debut of the Malibu series, MK2 was already out, so they could tie the lore of the first two games together and establish Shao Kahn in the world of the comics. Although he starts off as more of a shadowy figure in the background, showing how Shao Kahn uses the tournament to conquer different worlds and expand his empire. In the Blood and Thunder series, everyone has a voice of their own and they're mostly in character. Liu Kang is the hero, he's always trying to find a better way to do things. Not only is he the best fighter, but he's the best of us. Kano is always a scumbag, Shang Tsung is looking to break away from Shao Kahn and gain power for himself. Raiden is very much a break glass in case of emergency character, and so on. There are very solid character moments, however, like the Nintendo version of the game, they removed all the blood, and a lot of the iconic fatalities are absent unless they're done to characters who aren't human. In 1993, Tobias wrote and drew another comic for the MK2 release, tying the first and second games together and introducing his new characters. Another tournament is kicked off so Outworld can have revenge for the loss of Goro, also so Shao Kahn can invade Earthrealm. This comic brings back the characters from the first game, but also introduces new ones like
Jax, Kitana, Mileena, Baraka, Kintaro, Kung Lao, Reptile.
The first comic is solid, but this one is a step up in quality, from the storytelling to the lettering. It takes place immediately after the first game. Since the characters are already established, the storytelling feels more organic. Jax and Johnny Cage have a rivalry, the Shaolin monks finally unite, Tobias even explains how Sonya and Kano got trapped in that one MK2 map. Goro's father, King Gorbak, is introduced, and the Shao Kahn are highly respected by Shao Kahn. In the games, Shao Kahn is a high-energy, rage-baiting, wrestler-looking guy.
It's official. You suck.
Don't make me laugh.
You are nothing. It's official. You suck. You suck.
The comic shows his cold and calculating side. Tobias established Shao Kahn's monstrous face under his helmet all the way back in this comic. Both Tobias comics do a good job of explaining WHY ? Mortal Kombat Battlewave is a 6-issue series from 1995 that focuses more on the Outworld characters, so we see the story from the point of view of the bad guys. It takes place between MK2 and MK3, with Shao Kahn planning a direct invasion of Earthrealm without a tournament. It's written by Charles Marshall, with art by Patrick Rollo, Vinton T. Hoyk, and Brian O'Connell. Battlewave gets wrapped up with another Tournament Edition issue that features the invasion of Shao Kahn. Certain plot points from the games are explained, like how Jax gets his metal arms. There is not a single piece of Mortal Kombat media where they can agree on how this man got his arms. Also, we get a showdown between Scorpion and Bi-Han Sub-Zero.
Fatality.
This issue wraps up the second game and sets up MK3, where we see Shao Kahn planning another attack, and the introduction of the new Sub-Zero, Kuai Liang. The second tournament issue is kind of a pain to look at, but the frantic style of the artwork has some cool moments. There were some random series and one-shots that broke away from the tournament storyline, giving the characters room to breathe. Certain titles they put out make sense. Kung Lao, Baraka, Mileena, and Kitana get one-shots to flesh out their characters. Goro gets his own Prince of Pain miniseries that dives into his history and the culture of the Shao Kahn. During the Blood and Thunder series, Goro vanishes and gets his own story rampaging through cities and living forests. Here's Goro with a big 90s gun, you're welcome. Malibu dropped a random Raiden Kano miniseries in 1995. Marshall is still writing, with Kiki Chen-Simone doing the art. Throughout the run, Raiden is trying to see the best in Kano and teach him to be a better person. But Kano is Kano and only knows how to steal, chase power, and rage bait. This comic seems like it would be a waste of time with this unlikely duo. Turns out to be pretty heartwarming. The Special Forces characters like Sonya and Jax get their own series too, but nothing really happens in that comic. These comics are limited because it can't show the violence that makes MK iconic. However, these stories stay true to the characters even when they deviate from the lore Tobias created. Even then, it's not out of disrespect. They're just having fun with it and trying to expand on the story. The Baraka one-shot, written by Marshall with art by Hoyk, is a standout of the Malibu era. It focuses on a less popular character and has a smaller scale story.
If dead ones want fight, then Baraka give them fight.
Baraka is an enigma, even to his own people. Does he serve Shao Kahn, his people, or merely himself? No one seems to know for sure.
The art style is pretty clean, with Baraka protecting a child from the forces of Shao Kahn. It's pretty much Baraka, Lone Wolf, and Cub. While escaping Shao Kahn, Baraka is also being hunted by Noob Saibot on one side and Scorpion on the other. By this point, they're leaning into a more sympathetic take on Scorpion, diving into his origin of how he lost his family and moving away from the Spirit of Vengeance character he had in his early appearances. For a character that started off as a drawing and then a rubber mask with nails for teeth, Baraka is really humanized in this story. He's one of the characters that gets a chance to shine in all of these Malibu stories. Marshall is joined by artist Tim DeVar for Kung Lao's issue. It's tied to the story of MK2, featuring characters like Kitana, Shang Tsung, Baraka, Kung Lao, and others trying to overthrow Shao Kahn. Out of the one-shots, in my opinion, the story is the weakest, although Kung Lao is very cool and I'm glad he got a comic to himself. The Kitana and Mileena issue really goes into some backstory. There are some continuity errors saying that Jared and Sindel ruled over all of Outworld, when they really just ruled over Edenia. But that's why these comics aren't canon. Edenia is this peaceful land that becomes corrupted once Shao Kahn takes over. He executes Jared and takes Kitana as his daughter. This issue shows Shao Kahn as a menacing conqueror, but also as kind of a weirdo with control issues, going so far as to wipe Kitana's memory so she believes she's actually his daughter, also creating a clone of her with Mileena. It's a pretty thoughtful story for Kitana, showing her pushing for her free will as Mileena tragically learns why she was created. Definitely a highlight of these stories. Tobias did end up leaving Midway after the release of MK4 to follow his own projects. There was an official MK4 Midway comic, but Tobias did not make that one.
I think back to a conversation I had with an uncle of mine. He asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, hey, I want to draw Spider-Man. And he said, well, somebody's already drawn Spider-Man. You got to make up your own thing. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I guess I got to make up my own thing. And Mortal Kombat was that thing.
Just like with any property that was turned into a comic, the question is usually why haven't they reprinted it, and the answer is licensing issues. Check out my website for all of my videos, video scripts, and other info. If it is not on there, it is Shang Tsung shapeshifting to do some identity theft. Like, share, subscribe if you liked the video, dislike if you hated it. Thanks for watching. Chaos ensues.
I put you in the camel clutch, your shoulder gonna get damaged, your low back gonna get damaged, you're going home, your neighbor, cousin, uncle, nobody gonna recognize you.